You've been a good and faithful servant, Severus. But only I can live forever.
Severus Snape became a Death Eater in the First Wizarding War. He was extremely loyal to Voldemort until he realized that the Dark Lord planned to murder Lily Evans. Snape appealed to Albus Dumbledore, becoming a spy in exchange for her protection. From that point on, Snape used occlumency to prevent the Dark Lord from discovering his true allegiance. Following the death of the Potters, Snape's loyalty did not stop, and he swore to protect Harry from the Dark Lord, honoring Lily's sacrifice. So did Voldemort ever doubt or question Snape's loyalty? If he did, then why didn't he get rid of Snape or try to kill him earlier? And if he didn't, how could Snape outsmart Voldemort? Snape was probably the best occlumens in the wizarding world. He had absolute control over his emotions and thoughts, making it impossible for anybody to detect his true motives and plans. He was a highly skilled wizard, and his introvert personality made him perfect for occlumency. Voldemort always used legilimency, which is reading people's mind, to check Snape's information. So whenever Voldemort used his legilimency on Severus, the Half-Blood Prince used his occlumency to allow Voldemort to see only those things that could do nothing but convince Voldemort of Snape's allegiance. He never expected Snape to be just as accomplished in occlumency, so when Snape was able to lie to him, he was able to tell him falsehoods and block important information from him. He never once thought that he could be fooled and couldn't imagine that someone other than him could be so good at anything. Snape was visited by Bellatrix Lestrange and Narcissa Malfoy at Snape home in Spinner's End, and he was questioned by Bellatrix about his loyalty, as she didn't trust Snape as one of her fellow Death Eaters. "I don't trust you, Snape, as you very well know. Why is it that you do not trust me? 100 reasons." Bellatrix asked him questions that she wanted their answers so bad, questions that Voldemort himself would have asked. "Where were you when the Dark Lord fell?" Snape said that he was where Voldemort had ordered him to be, at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, because he wished him to spy upon Albus Dumbledore, and that it was on the Dark Lord's orders that he took up the post. "Why did you never make up an attempt to find him when he vanished?" It was for the same reason that Yaxley, the Carrows, Greyback, Lucius, and many others did not attempt to find him. He believed him finished. All of them were wrong, but if he had not forgiven who lost faith at the time, he would have very few followers left. "What have you been doing all these years that you've lived in Dumbledore's pockets?" He claimed that he had 16 years of information on Dumbledore to give Voldemort when he returned, and the reason he stayed at Hogwarts is that he had a comfortable job that he preferred to a stint in Azkaban. The Ministry was rounded up the Death Eaters, and Dumbledore's protection kept him out of jail. It was most convenient, and he used it. "Why did you stop the Dark Lord procuring the Philosopher's Stone?" He said that Voldemort didn't know whether he could trust Snape. He thought that he had turned from faithful Death Eater to Dumbledore's stooge. He was in a pitiful condition, very weak, sharing his body of an average wizard. He did not dare reveal himself to a former ally. If the ally might turn him over to Dumbledore or the Ministry, Snape showed that he deeply regrets that Voldemort did not trust him, because Voldemort would have returned to power 3 years sooner. "Why didn't you not return at once when the Dark Lord was reborn?" When Voldemort was reborn and called his Death Eaters to him, Snape did not appear until 2 hours later. The Dark Lord was suspicious and feared that Snape had abandoned his service. And here we have 6 missing Death Eaters, 3 dead in my service, 1 too cowardly to return, he will pay, 1 who I believe has left me forever, he will be killed of course, and 1 who remains my most faithful servant and who has already re-entered my service. There is some debate over the identities of these Death Eaters, but it's certain that Snape is the one whom Voldemort believed has left him forever, while the 2 others are Igor Karkaroff and Patrick Roy Jr. On Dumbledore's orders, Severus claimed that his delayed return had ensured that his master continued trust. The Dark Lord questioned Snape extensively and found all his answers satisfactory. Snape was then welcomed back to the inner circle. "Where were you a few weeks ago when we battled to retrieve the prophecy for the Dark Lord?" He claimed that his orders were to remain behind, and that Dumbledore would definitely have noticed if he had joined forces with the Death Eaters to fight the Order of Phoenix. And why, Snape, is Harry Potter still alive, when you have him at your mercy for 5 years? If Snape had murdered Harry Potter, the Dark Lord could not have used his blood to return, making him invincible. It was only Dumbledore's protection that was keeping Snape out of Azkaban. Murdering his favorite students might have turned Dumbledore against him. Voldemort realized the value of this, and understood the importance of keeping Snape at Hogwarts. Voldemort had asked him each and every one of these questions, and if Snape hadn't been able to give satisfactory answers, he wouldn't be sitting there talking to Bellatrix. But Voldemort never trusted anyone, no matter how loyal this seems to be. It is quite possible that Voldemort purposefully sent Wardmail to work with Snape to keep a watch on him. In Spinner's End chapter, Snape tells Bellatrix that Voldemort had sent him to assist him. It is quite also possible that Voldemort asked Snape to keep watch on Wardmail too, since we know Wardmail owed Harry a life debt. Voldemort's trust in Snape was further promoted when he murdered Albus Dumbledore. The Dark Lord did not know that Dumbledore had previously arranged the assassination with Snape. Snape became the Dark Lord's most trusted advisor and was given the position of Hogwarts headmaster after the fall of the Ministry of Magic. Snape continued to undermine him as much as possible, following Dumbledore's instructions, and provided Voldemort with all information he needed, such as informing the Death Eater the correct date of Harry's departure of the Dursleys' house, as to continue Voldemort's trust in him. One of the possible reasons why Voldemort placed so much trust in Snape was due to their rather similar backgrounds. Both men were the only children of Muggle fathers and pure-blood mothers. Both men's fathers had nothing but hatred for their son and wives. Voldemort's father had abandoned his mother when she was pregnant with their son, while Snape's father was abusive toward his wife Aelin and their young son. Both men grew up in a poverty. Voldemort grew up in an orphanage, while Snape lived in Spinner's End. In addition, both Riddle and Snape were sorted into Slytherin and were known for their intelligence. Both men had a passion for the dark arts and blood purity in their childhoods and gave grand titles unto themselves. Riddle was known as Lord Voldemort, while Snape adopted the name of Half-Blood Prince. Both of them saw Hogwarts as sort of a real home as opposed to their default home. However, there were differences between Snape and Voldemort. Snape had a secret love for Lily Evans for all his life, which motivated him to defect from the Death Eaters and protect her son. On the other hand, Voldemort disregarded love as a weakness that was beyond his understanding and had an allegiance to only himself. Voldemort doesn't understand love. If he read Snape's mind and saw Lily, he would see a lot of things that wouldn't make sense to him, and Voldemort dismisses everything he doesn't understand. I think this is similar to why Narcissa was able to lie to Voldemort, because she was doing it out of love for Draco, and Voldemort couldn't see this. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and see you again in the next video.